Hey guys, how's it going? Zeddy here with a brand new YouTube video, and well, we finally got our patch. We finally got an update to these cards in the Emerald Dream that have just been driving everybody crazy. And as you can very well tell, King Plush is on this list, and I don't think you guys are really gonna understand just how hard this card got nerfed. Like, oh my lord, there is a lot to talk about, but before we do that, I want to give a huge shout out to Blizzard for not only, letting me see this before anybody else, but for, letting me have all the access to the creator program. We would not be able to make this content without being in that program. And also, if you like this kind of content, feel free to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. But regardless, we are here to talk about the major updates that have happened, and there are a lot of problematic archetypes that are currently on top right now, so Blizzard is trying its best in order to bring down some of these cards as well as their play experience, because the dev comment is pretty much just straightforward. In this first balance change after the Embers of the World Tree mini set, we're addressing the power and play experience outliers both with the mini set and in the cards before it. These changes are primarily aimed at reducing the speed and prevalence of single blowout turns. Let's really just put that on the bulletin board whenever we look at new Hearthstone cards. Let's try to prevent single blowout turns to the best of our capabilities, within reason. We're also buffing some deck archetypes that we want you to re-explore. Imbue Priest, even though we already buffed it twice. But on the Wild side, we've also made some bans and card changes. Our philosophy with Wild is that we will step in less often only to address particular egregious play patterns and play experiences and balance outliers. We will also make impactful changes when we do. Standard cards that are banned in Wild are expected to be unbanned and adjusted when they rotate out of Standard. So that part will make sense once we take a look at what exactly is going on under the hood, because as you very well expected, Flickering Lightbot absolutely needed to be nerfed, and it's not even because of this card in particular, it's because of all of the 1-mana holy cards that you can use to enable a card like this very easily. So now, let's say that you have 5 holy spells, the soonest that you're going to be able to play this minion is still on turn 3, however, you need to be able to have 5 holy spells in order to do that. So I think that 8/8s are still kind of going to be a problem with this deck, but at least the 3/3 and like having a minion that you can use in order to use your buff cards, like for example with your life-saving aura sunscreens, not having a 0-mana minion that just hits the field and then you start buffing it immediately is a very big deal, and it will slow down the sea shanty turn, so you don't have to worry about those pesky, 5/5s until a little bit later into the game. But overall, this is definitely a big hit to Drunk Paladin, because the biggest issue with the deck wasn't necessarily just the Ursol tree combo, it was actually the early game tempo and how this one minion, sometimes 2 minions, would absolutely take over the early mid game going into the mid game, so that way when an 8/8 and then eventually your 5/5s and then eventually your Ursol would come out, this was pretty much that first domino that would lead to that last domino falling of always seeing Shaladrassil Ursol combos. So this is definitely one big way to hit the card, but this is not the only hit that Drunk Paladin has received in this balance patch. So what else has been hit? Harbinger of the Blighted in Rogue has also been hit, and honestly, who didn't see this coming? The biggest thing about this 2-drop is whether or not it would be balanced, and as it turns out, getting blown out by a turn 1, turn 2 board of like 4 to 6 2-drops if you have prep into web as well as double shadow step. Yeah, nobody wants to deal with that, and it really does suck how sometimes you just have to go next almost immediately because of this blowout turn. Now, do I really think that this card needed to be hit? Not necessarily, but sometimes that early turn Harbinger combo is exactly what you needed in order to win an unfavorable. But let's be honest, that shouldn't be in the game right now. There's just too many stats going on. And even though I really do like the deck, it absolutely needed to be nerfed, because now if you do Shadow Step it, it is going to cost 1 mana and you're not going to just be able to play it infinitely and just get a bunch of card draw as well as minions. So it's really good that this card got hit. Another card that got hit though, Tending Dragonskin, as a 3-mana 3/2, is now being bumped up to a 5-mana 5/4, which honestly, I don't think the stats really matter, but it's the battle cry. Now you can copy the lowest cost beast in your hand for about 4 to 5 mana, depending on if you have a Parrot Sanctuary. Now, we haven't gotten to the King Plush nerf yet. let me just say, you are never going to use this card to copy King Plush ever again. So the whole reason why I feel like they did this was just in case there's like a Malorn deck or there's like a Magma Hound deck to where it is really easy to still replicate this kind of combo. And if Imbue Hunter is still doing Grunter Hunter levels of OTKing, it is still going to be a problem, so it absolutely has to be addressed. However, I wonder if this is going to get in the way of like some kind of fun hunter down the line. I don't know. The thing about the Imbue mechanic that really makes me upset is that, you know, it's not the beasts themselves that are very powerful. It's not the attack of the beast. It's not the mana cheating that's happening with it. It's the fact that all of that is happening plus dealing damage. So that's why Magma Hound is still something that I'm a little bit scared of. But the big issue with Magma Hound is that, let's say you have a board of 1/1s. If Magma, let's just say, for example, is a 10/10. If you have that 10/10 trading into the 1/1s, the other 1/1s are probably going to die in that process. So even if you do have, let's say, another 10/10, there's probably not going to be another minion on the field that you are going to be able to hit. Now, there's the other circumstance of what if there's like 2 8/8s or something like that that can maybe take the damage. Maybe this combo is a little bit more, you know, worrisome. So I think that Imbue Hunter is still going to be somewhat of a deck that we're going to have to keep our eyes on, specifically because of the new Magma Hound card that was put into the mini set. But with this card also being 5 mana, there's a lot more steps that you have to jump through in order to make this happen. And even if Magma Hound is still really good, at least they slowed down this combo by a lot. So they're working around the Imbue hero power, giving you 0 mana beasts, but 0 mana beasts are not the problem. It is 0 mana beasts that actively deal damage the moment that they hit the field and interact with the board, so to speak. So with Imbue Hunter hopefully being taken care of, where does that leave our boy King Plush? Oh no. Oh no, they killed this card. Yeah, I don't know what really to tell you guys. This card's dead. This card is absolutely dead in so many ways. The only way that you can really utilize this card now is in some form of hunter that doesn't deal in OTK. They effectively made this change so that way you can't just buff this card, give it charge, and automatically win the game. Now its Battlecry says if your opponent has 15 or less health, return all other minions to the owner's deck and gain charge. Now, there's one thing that I am a little bit worried about with this particular card, but keep in mind, it does cost 9 mana at the end of the day. This kind of ability is kind of insane because now King Plush will always return the board back into your deck, both players' board. Doesn't matter how much attack it has, doesn't matter how much you try to make it to where it can always do with a 10/10. No. It is always going to put a minion back into the deck, but it also needs that 15 health requirement to also gain charge. So this is just going to be a card that maybe can be used in like a Discover Hunter, maybe can be used in some kind of Value Hunter, and now King Plush is an actual win condition that you have to work towards instead of just being given the win on a stick and having no thought process go into it whatsoever. Now, is this kind of ability still somewhat problematic? I would argue a little bit, because Hunter having essentially the best board clear mechanic in the game of ignoring Death Rattles and ignoring Reborn and ignoring taunts to a degree, I still feel like is something that I really don't enjoy within the game. But now you at least have to play this card for mana, because you're probably never going to play this in an Imbue deck now, but you have to also deal damage and you have to utilize this card at the perfect time. So is this still a card design that I am not exactly the biggest fan of? I do have to say yes, but at least now this thing is a lot more harder to make it work, and that is exactly what we need. So King Plush, rest in piss. I really hope I don't have to see you ever again, but if I'm going to see you, it better be in a based hunter deck that has value and actually needs to play out the game, because that's what I want. I want the game to be played out. I don't want the game to be done by turn 1 the moment that I queue into a hunter, so that's no longer going to happen. So RIP, rest in piss, King Plush. Let's move on to the next card, which is Cliff Dive, and the whole reason why I feel like this is happening is because Demon Hunter is actually in a really good spot right now. Demon Hunter, I feel like, is a class that not a lot of people are exploring because they pretty much know that it's play Ball Hog or play Cliff Dive, or you really don't get to play the Demon Hunter class. There is aggro Demon Hunters. There are some Among Us, memes that are out there, and I've actually created some pretty funny memes with Demon Hunter, which you guys will see tomorrow, by the way. But Cliff Dive is a little bit too much, especially when it comes out for 5 mana on coin. And if you have a weapon equipped already, then those Illadaris that get pulled out of it are going to be very powerful. But I feel like the main reason why this card didn't get nerfed sooner is because of Briarspawn Drake. Briarspawn Drake originally did not work with Cliff Dive when Drake was first put into the format because of a bug. It used to be that Cliff Dive would happen and it wasn't guaranteed that the dragon would attack before going back into the deck. Now that interaction is guaranteed, so your Briarspawn Drakes are now going to have to wait another turn before they come out, and I do find it very funny that they pretty much made this card, they pretty much made Briarspawn Drake as like a win condition, and now it's just being used as a scam card in every single deck that can cheat mana. So I don't know, maybe Briarspawn Drake itself is the problem, but Cliff Dive has been a very good tool for Demon Hunter for quite some time, and has been kind of infuriating because not only does it kill you in the right circumstances, but it's all RNG based. So you can't even really be, you can't really be happy if someone uses Cliff Dive in a skillful way, because there's not really a skillful way to do it outside of building around your deck around it, and at that point is it really a skill thing? It's just the deck just doing its thing very, very effectively. So I think that Cliff Dive going to 7 mana makes a lot of sense, and you could still discount it. You could still play your Sage on it if you discover it from Illidari Studies, for example. So Wayward Sage can still make this card 6 mana. I still feel like this card is going to be run in Demon Hunters. It is just now a little bit slower. But we're also getting some buff reverts. That's right, Symbiosis no longer discounts the card you discover by 1. It is just back to its original text. Discover a choose 1 card from another class. Nothing really to say. Imbue Druid needed that scam of Symbiosis into Spark of Life to not be a thing, and that is, I think, the only reason why this really got hit, because there's not really another interaction with this card that I feel like is too unfair. There maybe is some circumstances with banning this card to where you play around like double Innervate stuff, but if I'm gonna be honest, I feel like Innervate's more of a problem with a 3/3. So this just prevents Druid from ramping up their minions as easily as they have been. And now this next nerf, I gotta be honest, I don't think this matters. Curse Campaign going to 4 mana, I really don't believe that this is going to make a single impact whatsoever. I feel like the only reason why this card was nerfed was so that way Layover doesn't get nerfed, and the only thing that I can really think of is that now if you play Yor on turn 5, you now do not have the possibility on turn 7 without coin to play Curse Campaign into Eternal Layover. But you wanna know what you could still do? You could still play Curse Campaign into Conflagrate, the new card that they just put into the mini set that deals 5 damage. So your Ancient of Yor is still going to be able to duplicate itself very effectively, and you could coin it on turn 4, and then on turn 6, it is still possible for you to Curse Campaign, kill the minion, and get more value. So I really don't think that this nerf is really going to matter all too much, because this card is quite literally only being used on Yor, and to a lesser extent, the Starship decks, which this does kind of impact the Starship decks pretty heavily, because now you can't just play Starship Piece into Curse Campaign in the same turn as easily. So this does have some complications. This does have some actual meaningful effect when you think about it. But what I see is going to happen, Warlocks are just going to adjust, they're just going to adapt, they're still going to run Ancient of Yor, they're still going to run 2 Curse Campaigns, and they're still going to kill it with Conflagrate. So I really don't know if this is really going to help the Warlock problem. I think that Ancient of Yor was like the card to hit, but I like Ancient of Yor. I like Ancient of Yor in my Demon Hunter deck that I've put it into. I like it in my Druid deck. Yeah, it's really busted in Warlock, but I don't know. I like Ancient of Yor as like a fun, like, I have a combo and I need to stall the game and I need to just get a little bit of armor and a little bit of card draw. In Warlock, it feels busted, but in every other class, Ancient of Yor really isn't a problem, so that's probably the reason why they decided to target this card in particular. But next up is a card that does impact a lot of classes, and I'm not really sure about this, to be honest. Your Sing-Along Buddy is now a 3 mana 2/4, where your hero power still trigger twice. The only thing I really don't like about this is that this is obviously to nerf Druid. Druid is really the only class at the moment that is able to really milk the amount of value that Sing-Along Buddy can produce. And that is because if you have big minions like a 5/5, for example, you really don't want to trade into that 1/4 if you are under threat of lethal damage. So it's just one of those things to where Sing-Along Buddy was really easy to hide behind a taunt in Jade Druid. It was really easy just to make a big board out of nowhere to where your opponent just can't do anything about it. Something like 2 10/10s in the same turn. But the reason why I'm kind of sad about this is because because Imbue Mage gets a lot worse now. Imbue Shaman really doesn't ever want to run this card now because it's way too expensive. Imbue Priest, we'll talk about Imbue Priest once we get to the hero power changes, because holy crap, is it completely different now. But I feel like Sing-Along Buddy now is only going to be used in Priest, and maybe still used in Druid, probably, just because, you know, Druid has a lot of mana that it can work with. But I really think that nerfing Sing-Along Buddy, all it really did was make all of the other hero power imbued decks worse, when really, if you wanted to nerf Druid, I feel like the 3/3 that gave you a 0 mana hero power, maybe you could have bumped that up to like 4 mana if you're trying to slow the deck down a decent amount. I don't know. I feel like Sing-Along Buddy was just a net damage nerf instead of a net positive. Unfortunately, it's just a net negative in my opinion. But I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this will keep Druid still in a good spot while also making Imbue Mage and other hero power decks still a little bit consistent. But in my opinion, I feel like this wasn't the card to hit. Now moving on to the legendary that I feel like a lot of people definitely wanted to see hit. I'm kind of sad about this, but I'm not like that sad about it. The reason why I'm sad about this is because Naralex now has been changed to where your first dragon each turn costs 1. All your dragons used to cost 1, right? Now it's just your first one. So Ysera Rogue is no longer a thing where you can like bounce Ysera, give yourself infinite mana. You can't play Fyrakk infinite times in Rogue now, which is kind of sad. There was some decks that I think that were running this in like a Druid deck, and they were running like a bunch of like Briarspawn Drakes and Yseras, as well as like a Fyrakk or something like that. But the biggest reason why I feel like they just nerfed this card is not necessarily because the effect is game breaking. It's just this kind of ability is just going to produce only the most frustrating decks that you will encounter. There's just no other way to put it. This is a scam card at its absolute core. Its mechanics are infuriating. Its mechanics are just make 1 mana minions, and there are some people that think that mana cheating is the worst mechanic in Hearthstone in terms of fun. And in some cases, like this one, they would 100% be correct, because this had to be nerfed due to Zarimi Priest. There's really no other way to put it. I mean, Zarimi Priest could literally threaten over 100 damage worth, just 100 damage, like I don't know how else to put it. They could threaten 100 damage, so this had to be nerfed. Briarspawn Drake, yet again, avoiding some sort of action, but then again, is it really the dragon's fault? If you play it for 10 mana, it's not really that busted, but if you play it for 1 mana twice very easily, there's really nothing more to say there. So I feel like with this card, it makes me sad, because I like dragons. I like the idea of making a big dragon combo work, but if it's gonna kill Zarimi, and if it's going to hopefully give us a better meta because of that, then I guess I'm just gonna have to just be happy that this is happening. But I don't know. These kind of cards make me happy because it's about the trial and tribulation that goes into testing them and finding out what's good. But if it's really obvious what's good, then you gotta nerf it, right? And I already know that a lot of you guys are going to be very happy about this next change. Shaladrassil is now going to 8 mana. That's right. The Ursul combo is still technically possible, but now you're not summoning 14 12s and 6 10s alongside your gigantic buffs. You now have a little bit less gas in the tank, because now your Ursul does not corrupt the Shaladrassil. Now, it would be really funny if there is a way to increase the mana cost of your Ursul to 9 mana. I don't know how that's possible, but it'd be really funny if there was still a way to activate that combo, or even like discount the Shaladrassil. Like, is there a way of discounting your next spell, or discounting like a nature spell or something? I don't know. Maybe there's a way to still do this in Paladin. It's probably a turbo meme though. But yeah, Shaladrassil now at this point is just going to be 10 mana, deal 10 if you have a minion on the field, unless you're playing Rogue. So you're just going to use this as like a Nightmare plus Ysera Awakens. I really don't see how else you're really going to utilize this card now that the one deck that it was utilized in a somewhat different way is now completely off the table. I'm not going to spend that much time talking about the wild changes, because I really haven't explored the wild format in over 2 years, but I can pretty much tell you the reasons why they're nerfing these cards. Order in the Court, this is getting nerfed to prevent like Holy Wrath Paladin from throwing 125 damage at your face somewhat consistently. So now it's 4 mana to help that combo be really slowed down. I'm pretty sure there maybe is another Paladin deck that wanted this at 2 mana, but now it's completely off the table. That's pretty much what they're doing with Wild, is that they're making these ridiculous combos a lot slower or completely invalidated now, because like with Scabs, it's now discounting by 2 instead of by 3, and this is absolutely massive to stop those ridiculous rogue combos that you keep seeing in Wild, where you have to ask yourself, are people animation cheating? Odds are they probably aren't, but it really does feel like they are, because Scabs Cutter Butter has finally gotten nerfed. There's got to be a joke that Zeddy is making about this card, being like, I knew it 4 years ago, I knew that Nova was like, this card was too busted. We'll let Zeddy take care of that, because I really don't have much to say about Wild. Void Touch Attendant, I mean, this is a nerf Shadow Priest. From what I hear, Shadow Priest is the best deck of the game. Make this card 2 mana. Now you can't just play 2 of them for 1 mana and essentially, you know, I don't want to say triple your damage, but it feels like tripling your damage. Regardless, this card needs to be nerfed. I don't really know what else to say. Serenite Chain Gang, apparently there was a Velen combo. I don't know what that Velen combo was, but that's the only reason why this card got nerfed. Originally, it was supposed to be, wait, hold on a minute. There's actually an issue on this draft, Blizzard. On Blizzard, actually, the new battle cry is just summon a Serenite Chain Gang. That's right, this card has been nerfed yet again. It is no longer going to summon a copy of itself, and the reason why is because of these Velen combos. But originally, this card was nerfed so that way Shutterwalk wouldn't make copies of itself. Shutterwalk can still do that with like other cards that are available in the format, but it feels really funny that Serenite Chain Gang once again has been nerfed to summon a copy, or I'm sorry, to summon a Serenite Chain Gang instead of summoning a copy. Those are all the nerfs in Wild, but there are also 2 cards that are being banned in Wild. Everburning Phoenix and Grove Shaper. So again, I don't know that much about Wild, but just taking a look at these cards, I know there was an Umbra, Spirit Singer, Everburning Phoenix combo that was popular with like Knife Juggler, for example. I don't know if that was the reason why this card got banned for that specific interaction, if there was like another combo that was able to utilize this very, very effectively. But essentially what happened is that this card gave you infinite value with Spinger Singer Umbra as well as Knife Juggler, to where all you literally had to do was just play your Phoenixes. You would just play this card infinitely, the Umbra would kill it, you'd play it again, the Knife Jugglers would deal damage. It seems like a pretty funny combo, but if it's a combo that's that consistent, then I understand why they're just banning it entirely. I don't know if there's another reason why, but that one combo sounds like a lot of fun until you see it very frequently. And then Grove Shaper, I feel like this is because of like a Gloop combo or something to do with like innervates and cheating out infinite mana. There's probably like some sort of infinite combo that's enabled. And if you know what this combo is, feel free to let me know in the comments below. I don't play Wild like this. So when I saw Grove Shaper on here, the only thing that popped in my mind is Gloop's Glorious Gloop. I mean, that card's pretty busted, but I feel like they've nerfed that card like twice now. So I don't know exactly why this card was nerfed, but I'll just believe that there is something degenerate going on in Wild that included druids and nature spells. Now we are getting to the most interesting part of this balance patch, and that is the update and the buffing of certain hero powers. Imbue Priest has been buffed yet again, and honestly, I don't know why they didn't just do this from the very beginning, because this just makes a lot of sense. I guess they thought the archetype would be a little bit better, to where tutoring playable cards would be a little bit too much, but I'm gonna be honest, they just don't give Priest anything, and honestly, as a Priest hater, I love that. But now I'm gonna have to start worrying, because Imbue Priest is starting to look like a deck that is finally not unplayable. Maybe we can get this deck above a 40%. Because now the new hero power is choose a playable priest minion or spell to add to your hand. It costs 1 less and is temporary. So keep in mind, you can increase the mana discount as many times as you can, but the biggest thing about this change is that if you are sitting at 5 mana and you have, let's say, reduce it by 3 because you've just had the nuts, if you press the hero power for 3 mana, you now are going to be offered a card that is playable at 3 mana, right? Because of the discount. So if I have a discount of 3 and I'm sitting at 3 mana, I can then discover a 6 mana minion to hopefully play by that turn. Very complicated way of saying it, but it's not really as complicated as you think. If you spend the mana, and if you get the mana reductions, you are going to get a card that is actually playable. Now, if this ends up turning out where it's like you have 3 mana and you're only going to discover 3 mana cards and it's not going to take that mana discount into account, then that's a problem in my opinion. Like, I don't know. Imbue Priest, they are really trying to bring back this value priest, and I hope that it works. I hope that this is the archetype that the Imbue Priest players really want, but do I think this deck is going to be good? Do I think this deck is going to be playable by any means? I really don't think so. Like, now they finally have minions, so they can maybe make like a tempo-based deck that can maybe kill you with minions. But I don't know, dude. It just seems like there's still too much randomness. There's still too much going on. And I'm just not happy looking at this archetype, to be honest. I would hate to be a Priest fan right now. But then again, if you're playing Priest, you've probably been miserable since Raza Priest. I have not enjoyed a Priest deck since Raza Priest and Boar Priest have been a deck. Maybe the class just isn't for me. Let me know what your thoughts are on Priest down in the comments, because I really feel like the only person that's going to benefit from this is probably going to be Brian Kibler. But you want to know what I feel like I'm going to benefit from? Ooh, baby, Imbue Paladin getting a buff. Oh, Imbue Paladin getting a 1-mana shuffle. Ooh, baby, I love this. I wanted Imbue Paladin to be playable. This was like my favorite Imbue deck that they came out with, and it's just been sad. Like, Paladin has been completely overshadowed by Drunk Paladin and by aggro Paladin decks for quite some time. Aggro Paladin's literally been like the only playable Paladin deck for like the past 3 years, dude. It's really sad when like there's one other deck that comes up and it's like, well, thank God it's not aggro Paladin. Hopefully now I can say thank God I can play dragons in Paladin, because that was like one of my very first archetypes that I really wanted to be good in Hearthstone. Dragon Paladin has just been one of my favorite archetypes throughout Hearthstone history, and so we finally have a way to make this good. I think this might be the first deck that I mess with. I don't know, but I feel like a lot of people are going to be messing with Paladin. I don't know. I just feel like a lot of things are going to be opened up, and maybe board interaction is going to matter. I feel like we keep saying this. We're like, oh, hopefully the board is going to matter. But this is literally a deck where it needs to win on the board to win. So Blizzard is doing what it can in order to buff up these archetypes. I'm really happy with this. I feel like Imbue and Paladin has been an issue because you can't play the minion and push the button while simultaneously doing nothing. I think that's the reason why they're buffing this to 1, because now I can like hero power into like that dragon. I think it's Warden Caster or something. That dragon that can draw a card that didn't originally start in your deck. Now that is a lot easier to pop off, and you can actually build your deck around this hero power change. So I really like what they've done here with this. The next buffs, I'm not really sure are really going to make that much of an impact, but Shadowflame Suffusion is now... instead of being deal 3 for 3, it is now deal 2 for 2, where you get to discover a warrior minion with a dark gift. Sure. I guess this makes the dragon, the turtle dragon, a little bit more playable. I don't really know what this is for. I mean, Dark Gift Warrior doesn't really have a lot going for it at the moment. Giving them a deal 2 for 2. I feel like all this really does is nerf Fire Act, because Fire Act getting 3 damage from this was pretty nice and when it was going face, but now if you're only getting 2, I don't really know about that. So yeah, Shadowflame Suffusion, I don't really know if Dark Gift Warrior is playable. Maybe this makes a Tempo Warrior a little bit easier because you can bridge your early game and mid game a little bit easier, but I just don't see what they're really supporting with this deck. What I will say though is that Psycho Rogue is getting a buff. Not that big of a buff, but I mean, it's a 2-mana 3/2. It's very similar to that Death Knight card, Harbinger, Chill, Fault, whatever that thing is called, where you get to draw a Frost spell and it's a 2-mana 3/2. Really just, I don't really know what else to say here. Buffing up this thing's attack probably doesn't matter too much, but Psycho Rogue technically got a buff because it is the only deck that I am noticing that actually is running the Living Flame. Darkrider also got a buff, going from a 1/1 to a 2/1. Not really sure how impactful that's going to be, but I mean, hey, at least they're trying to make Temple Warrior a little bit better. So that makes me happy, but this doesn't really seem like the card I would want to buff in order to make this a little bit easier. In my opinion, I feel like Warrior has all the cards that are available, but like it has everything that it needs in order to make a good deck. That's what I mean. Is that it has these tools, it has these packages, but these packages are just weak compared to everything else. The abilities are fine, but when you actually play them against like another archetype or something, it just feels like they're completely lackluster. I don't know. I feel like Warrior just is a Tempo Warrior and Enraged Warrior is a shell of its former self, and I'm really not sure if Blizzard is going to be able to fix it with this wave of buffs. They really need just more cards to put into these packages. There's also another buff for Imbue Priest. I don't know, this actually feels like it makes a little bit of an impact here, because now if you used your hero power this turn, you get to gain +3/+3. And the only thing that I'm really thinking about one thing I'm really considering, how likely is it for you to discover this card out of the hero power? Especially if now you are going to get a playable card for Priest. Now, granted, there are a decent amount of 2-drops out there, but I'm really wondering like how consistently you can just push button, find this card on 2 mana, and then just play it as a taunt, and now you have like an infinite wall of taunts. The math probably doesn't check out for that, but I mean, you need stats as Priest, and you need ways of coming back. So now if you can hopefully, you know, push your button and play this, you have a 4 mana 4/6 with lifesteal and taunt. That seems worth it. And hopefully this will be the buff that Priest really needs in order to make Imbue Priest playable, because if these buffs don't make this deck good, I feel like Blizzard needs to look very hard in the mirror and take a look at the guy who's making the Priest cards and be like, all right, we've nerfed you for too long. You got to make some good Priest cards now. Because the biggest issue is the archetype is fun for people, but it's not playable, and if it's not playable, it doesn't matter how fun the deck is because no one will play it. I really want to challenge the Priest game designer to hopefully come up with some fun mechanics, because outside of Imbue Priest, I really feel like there hasn't been a lot of fun Priest decks since Elwynbor Priest. And that deck was fun, not necessarily because of how fun the deck actually was by itself, but because the challenge of popping off the combo and playing that deck perfectly was what made it fun, in my opinion. So maybe we go back to some fun Priest decks, but as of right now, if you're a Dark Gift Warlock fan, you are probably celebrating. Overgrown Horror, 4 mana 3/5. This is what I'm talking about, where it's like, we need a card to buff. What are we going to buff? We are going to buff the card that actually gives the deck some playability. Because now with Dark Gift Warlock, instead of waiting towards turn 5 to play your discount card, you could play this card as early as turn 3, and I'm not really sure if there's a lot of cards you can discount by that time, but you can at least do something with this card a little bit sooner. Is this going to make Dark Gift Warlock playable? I don't think so. What's probably going to make Dark Gift Warlock playable is all of these changes to the meta to where Dark Gift Warlock finally doesn't feel like it's a slow combo that doesn't do anything. So I feel like that's something that is definitely a net positive in this particular update, is that there are a lot of decks that are hopefully going to get some actual chances of being played, because decks like Imbue Hunter and Drunk Paladin that would just kill you as early as turn 6, you don't have to worry about those decks anymore. So now with a 7 mana win condition, you can maybe win the game, or maybe now, instead of only using Wallow as an OTK, you can actually use it as like a comeback tool, and then you can use the rest of your minions to hopefully win the game. This is very much of a Christmas land perfect situation, but that's what I want for Dark Gift Warlock. I want the deck to be somewhat playable, so that way when someone comes up to me being like, Clark, what's your opinion on Dark Gift Warlock? I'm not just gonna sit there and shit on their favorite deck, because this deck I haven't even played. I didn't play it during Theorycraft. I haven't played it since the update happened, since these cards were released, and I haven't played it since the mini set came out, because I already know it's a miserable play experience. So that is all the buffs that are available right now. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, as I'm surrounded by all of this shadow and darkness. But yeah, I am really, really happy with what's going on with this update. I am going to be playing a lot on stream today, and I have a lot of already interesting decks I wanted to play before the update happened. And now after the update happens, maybe some of these weird memes that I've been cooking are actually going to be playable. So what do you guys think? Are you happy with this balance patch? Are you angry? Are you a little bit frustrated because you feel like things are going in the right direction, but we're still not quite there? I am the latter, honestly. I feel like there's a lot of really cool mechanics that have just not had a chance to shine, and Blizzard is doing a very noticeable job at trying to make this happen. But if you try and still fail, I feel like that has a lot to say behind it, like Imbue Priest being the obvious, culprit behind this opinion. Hopefully Imbue Priest is not going to be a 40% deck. Hopefully it can at least make it to a 45%. I would argue that right there would be a successful Imbue Priest if it can get itself to at least a 45%. And if that can't happen, we really got to take a look in the mirror at some of these cards. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this meta-analysis and patch update. One more huge shout out to Blizzard for letting me see this stuff before anybody else, and we'll see you guys in the next video.